Welcome to Shares from the American College of Financial Services. Here's a look at what we'll be sharing with you today.
I want to be able to trust the people that I'm working with, both on my right and my left. And part of that is knowing both what they're doing and also being prepared to step up. If you can really start to put that in place, it really helps a business unit produce and become both more effective and ultimately more profitable.
Good afternoon. I am Phil Easton, and I am the Managing Director for the American College Center for Military and Veterans Affairs. It is an honor to welcome our listeners to this special Veterans Day edition of Lessons in Leadership. Today we celebrate the service and commitment of our nation's veterans, the 1% of our U.S. population that have raised their hand to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And today we thank them for their service and we thank them for their sacrifice. We're also especially privileged to have a true rock star and veteran himself to join us today, the 2025 Soldier-Citizen Award Recipient, Vice Admiral James Zortman. And let me tell you a little bit about this amazing, prestigious award that he received just a little bit over a month or so ago. The Soldier-Citizen Award celebrates military leadership, industry success, and the greatness of American society. The recipient is recognized as someone who has protected the freedoms of our society in the armed forces and subsequently enhanced society as a citizen. Sir, it was such an honor to be a co-presenter on September 18th at our 11th Annual Military Summit and be able to present you with this prestigious award. You've served admirably in uniform, and you continue to do amazing things in retirement. So let me tell our listeners a little bit of why I say this. Vice Admiral Zortman's journey of service and sacrifice began in 1973 when he graduated from the Naval Academy. Over the next 3 decades, he rose through the ranks, commanding at sea in every level with distinction. One of his most significant achievements came during Operation Enduring Freedom, where he commanded U.S. carrier task forces in the wake of the September 11th attacks. His leadership during this critical time was a beacon of strength and resolve, ensuring the Navy's readiness and effectiveness in the face of unprecedented challenges. Beyond his military career, Admiral Zortman's impact continues to shape the financial services industry. His 13 years of service on the USAA's board of directors, including his role as chairman, have been transformative for USAA's 14 million members and 38,000 employees. During his tenure, USAA navigated through some of the most challenging times, including the global pandemic, record inflation, and historic weather-related events while maintaining unwavering service, a fortress-strong balance sheet, and financial stability. Admiral Zortman's advocacy for transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses have been a cornerstone of his leadership. His efforts have not only enhanced access to financial resources for underrepresented and less affluent families, but have also solidified USA's commitment to the military community. So, sir, congratulations on this amazing accomplishment as our Soldier-Citizen recipient, and also happy Veterans Day to you as well. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. Over to you, sir.
Well, Phil, thank you for that very kind introduction. I just one correction. I think as we agreed earlier, we were going to temporarily rename the award the Sailor Citizen Award. So thank you for accommodating that request.
Yes, sir. 100% on board. Got it. Thank you so much. Congratulations on being our soldier sailor, as our CEO and president would call it, but our Sailor Citizen Award recipient for 2025. Yes, sir. Awesome. Well, congratulations. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our podcast questions. So, sir, right out the chute, you've led through tough times in national crisis. We heard about it in your bio, both in military and in the financial services industry. First question, What core leadership principles have guided you through these vastly different yet equally high stakes challenges?
Well, I'd say no matter where you're at, it starts out with building trust. And trust is something that needs to be built all the time, but it's particularly important to build it when you don't need it, because when you need it, it's too late to do it. I'd say that the second principle or kind of timeless thing that doesn't make much difference where you're at is to be honest about the circumstances that you're in. The people that you're working with and that you might be charged to lead, they know what they see. And the quickest way to lose trust or to call into question how much you really know is to be anything less than honest about what is going on around you and what might be ahead. And then I think the third thing is to prepare people for the job you've asked them to do. You can't always look into the future and know everything that your unit or your business division or your whatever might have to do. But if you're prepared for the job that you've been asked to do, and the people on your right and left are, I found that there isn't much you can't take on and figure out how to do with people who know what they're doing, trust the people that are leading them, and have an honest and clear view of what they're facing.
Thank you, sir. And you're right. Everything that we did while we were in uniform, I served 32 years, you served 30 plus as well. And everything that we did while we were in uniform was based on trust, right? Having those teammates to our left and to our right. And we had, ways to make sure that we're prepared for the job. Sometimes we were thrown in there, but most times we were prepared through our training and our education to make sure that we were successful. So that leads me into our second question, which is talking about transitioning personnel. As you know, and hopefully the majority of our audience knows, the Center for Military and Veterans Affairs that I'm the managing director for, we are laser focused on those transitioning personnel, whether they've been 2 years in the military, whether they've been 40 years in the military, whether they're in uniform, out of uniform, maybe they've been doing something else, not in financial services as a veteran for 10, 20 years, and now they want to be an advisor. We are laser focused on making sure that they have a smooth transition. And that trust and preparing them for the job is very important. So my second question is, as someone who has championed the transition of military members and spouses into civilian careers, what leadership lessons can corporate executive teams or corporate executives learn from the military model to build more resilient, mission-driven teams in today's business environment?
I think that one of the real strengths in the military model is something that is born a bit out of necessity, but as it's developed, I think it's become a real strength. And that is the focus on training your replacement. It's a core competency in leadership, and it's something that in the military you're really evaluated on. It's how do you prepare the people at every level in a unit that you're at to take the next job. And don't be afraid that they're going to take your job, because you need them to take your job. It's the way that in a mobile operation like the military, you're always going to have people that are coming and going. My experience in industry has been there's some reluctance sometimes for leaders or other people to prepare people to do other things. And I think that in some ways goes back to that trust element that we talked about a little bit earlier. I want to be able to trust the people that I'm working with, both on my right and my left. And part of that is knowing both what they're doing and also being prepared to step up if somebody does leave for some reason. In a military operation, it may be that they're transferred, or it may be that they're wounded. In a business environment, it may be that that person gets called off to do something else, or they decide to leave for another opportunity someplace. So I found that if you can really start to put that in place, it really helps a business unit produce and become both more effective and ultimately more profitable.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, about training your replacement. One of the things is kind of cliche, but I would say when I was in uniform and heard from others say over the years is to lift as you climbed, right? So we all want to climb and get to the top. You may, be 3, 4 star general, E4, E89, warrant officer 5, right? But you've got to bring those along with you, right? And for me, my greatest achievements, I would feel, was watching those that I supervised continue to get promoted and continue to, and with prayers that they continue to be even more successful than I had in my career. So I definitely love that. So one of the things within financial services, if we talk about, make sure that we train in our replacement, is to make sure that within the financial services industry, we talk about the goodness and the skills and things that the military community can bring to financial services. But before we even get to that point, we've got to make sure that the military community is even aware of the opportunities within the financial services industry. It is a niche career field, especially MOS, AFSC, et cetera, in the services, sometimes civilianized and not necessarily a lot of military in these positions. So my next question is talking about awareness. So how do we build awareness and interest among military members and spouses about opportunities within the financial services industry, especially when many may not even consider it as a viable or accessible path?
I thought a lot about that particular question when you and I discussed it here a few weeks ago. And what I came to was when you're in the military, you typically come in at a pretty young age. A lot of 19, 20, 20-year-olds come in, and a 4 or 5 year enlistment might look like forever, but in the big scheme of things, it's a pretty small number when you're at a youthful age like that. And so I think the way I would say it in kind of a catchphrase is to get left on the timeline. And, in military terms, you talk about trying to get left on the timeline, which is to get things done either when they need to be done or maybe even a little bit earlier. So you create some space on the right side of the timeline to adapt to things that might come at you. So, what is left on the timeline along the lines of the question that you just answered? It's awareness. There is, when you first go in, there's all the pressures and the things that come with going through initial training and then maybe some additional skills training and then getting into your first unit. But once people kind of figure things out, in a lot of cases, they've got time to do some other things. And I think, Phil, you saw it when you were in uniform. The number of military members that are going back and going for college education part-time is incredible. And the number of people that get those kinds of courses, and a lot of them lead to full degrees, sometimes they're cast a little bit about what to study. And so I think the opportunity exists to get left on the timeline. And while you might be a computer tech, or you might be a jet mechanic, or you might be working in the motor pool, what you've got the opportunity to do is to branch out beyond the thing that you're doing. And so making I think the industry, and I think the American college is a great place for this because it's got the word college in its title, is to get out there into these places where big installations. There's a lot of educational institutions that specialize in delivering the kind of course content and the courses to military, and they do that because they recognize and they've adapted to the kinds of environments that they got to operate in. It isn't everybody gets to go to college on a campus someplace. You're maybe teaching people are doing their homework in the barracks or in the bunk room on a ship. So I think get left on the timeline. Places like the American College, maybe organizing a lot of the other educational institutions that are delivering this kind of content and making people aware of whether you decide to do this or whether you just use it for your own benefit. You're going to have a financial life no matter what you do. You can cast a wider net and get people interested earlier. That leads to something further down the line.
No, that's awesome, sir. And what you talked about is that awareness, like you talked about the benefit, right? So whether you continue to be an advisor or not, at the end of the day, you're going to get that financial education that you need to be a better mom, dad, supervisor, aunt, uncle, whatever applies, you're just going to be a better human because you're going to understand some of the fundamentals associated within financial services industry. And I love you putting a plug out there for the American College, and I'll put a plug out there within the awareness piece of it for the Center for Military and Veterans Affairs. That's what we do each and every day, provide free education, and we also provide free scholarships for those that are interested in the financial services industry. And starting on November 15th is when our application window opens up for our scholarship program. So please head out to our website if you'd like to learn more about that. So, and you talked about how we've talked about for a long time when we were at the summit and when we've had our meetings over the months about the importance of spouses, military spouses and military members in the financial services and how services industry and how it's a great fit, right? Because of the skills and the training and the education and the things that we've learned, whether it's been a 4-year career or a 40-year career. So my next question is talking about those skills. So in your opinion, sir, what unique skills do military members bring to the financial services industry, and how can organizations recognize and harness these strengths?
I'd say that the number one skill that they bring is adaptability. I think that we've seen in whatever industry it is, there's a lot of things changing very quickly. And the places that are successful are places that can stick to their core principles, but at the same time be adaptable in the tactics and the things that are happening day to day. And I think military members, just the fact of the way that units are constructed and the way that you have to operate, you have to be adaptable. Because one day you could be, think, I got the next 3 months are pretty well laid out. And that night, a movement order comes in and you're packing your stuff up. And 2 days later, you're on your way to who knows where. So adaptability. And then I think the other one is the ability to quickly assimilate to new environments. And, you might say, well, that sounds a lot like adaptability. Adaptability is a mindset. Being able to adapt in a new environment is just the physical acts that are required. There's people that when you change their environment, you move their cheese, their performance goes way down. My experience with military members, just because of the mindset, is they, in some ways, thrive on when things change. And if things stay static for too long, they get a little bit stale. So I think it's a great question because I think initially employers sometimes go, well, they're bringing a great skill in cyber, or they're bringing a great skill in some mechanical thing. And that's true. That's very true. In a lot of cases, military members they get a chance to perform at a higher level in responsibility by necessity. All of a sudden, everybody looks around and goes, you're the only one here that can do that. And they do it. So they've been put in tough positions. They've had to perform. And I think from that, they get a third thing, and that's confidence. They get confidence that when asked to do something, they'll figure it out. So I think confidence and adaptability and the willingness to take on changing circumstances are things that companies can really build on.
Yes, we definitely in the military have to learn adaptability, and in the Air Force, and I'm sure you probably said the same things as the Air Boss, but you talk about flexibility, adaptability being the key to air power, right? We say that in the Air Force. I'm sure you probably said that on a lot of carriers as the Air Boss. And so that's very important, and it's very important skill to have within financial services industry, right? So you've got to build your book of business. You've got to be able to be flexible and adaptable and changing the environments, right? So I love the way that you separated, adaptability, from assimilating in a new environment, from mindset versus physical, right? Because you have to continue to make sure that you have your mind right first, right? And then your body will follow when it comes to being able to do new and different things. And probably the most adaptable members of our military community are our military spouses, right? I drug my wife around for 22 of the 32 years. She served 10 years on her own. So my next question is about military spouses. So military spouses often serve as financial decision makers in their households and bring adaptability, resilience, and leadership to that role. How can the financial services industry better recognize the potential and actively recruit and support them as valuable contributors to the industry.
We talked a little bit earlier about educational opportunities. And so I think the same thing applies with spouses. Now, you're pretty busy when you're a military spouse with all the things that go with having a family and frequent moves and those sorts of things. But I think one, making the awareness of this is a good thing for just what we said before, whether it's going to be something to do as a career or whether it's going to be something you're going to use to manage your own life. I think the second thing that industry can do is this is like a lot of our service members, this is a very educated and I would say ambitious group of people. And they're, in a lot of cases, looking for a set of circumstances that they can operate and use the skills that they've got. And to a large degree, they're often handicapped by just the mobility that's required in military services. So companies that they're looking for people, they're looking for good people, the ability to go, we might want to have most of our people working back in the office, but we're going to have some portion of it. We're not necessarily going to have them in there. We're going to recognize the mobile nature, I call it a little bit of the nomadic lifestyle, and make the kind of accommodation that uses that. And in a lot of cases, they don't necessarily want to do that, but that's the way they have to operate. And I've seen companies that have done this very well. And a set of orders comes in, and the spouse, the military members talking to their detailer or their monitor or their assignment person, the spouse is at the same time doing the same thing in that company, and they figure out a way to be able to transport that job to the new location and continue. And two-income families in the military are not a luxury. In a lot of cases, it's a necessity. It's the thing that really fills in some of the pressures that get put on, particularly families with children, things that basic military compensation doesn't completely cover.
No, thank you so much for that. And just another shout out to our military spouses who, while we're out on the road, while we're out deployed or TDY, they're the ones at home, working outside the home, taking care of potentially the kids, and making sure that they're holding everything down. So, the great thing about when you talk about that education opportunities and mobility, one of the things that we're focused on at the Center for Military and Veterans Affairs is that our scholarship program is also open to military spouses. So active duty, Guard, Reserve veterans and all of their spouses. And then one of the designations that the American College is launching next year is for the accredited financial counselor designation, which is required at every military installation if you want to be a personal financial or its equivalent, if you want to be a personal financial manager or a personal financial counselor. So it's mobile. It's a designation that's mobile, that when you do get that short notice after just being a year at X location that you have to go to the next location, you can pack up the bags and have a designation that can be recognized overseas or at any military installation. So that education is very, very important. So as we transition into our next question, still focusing on those transitioning military members, and we've talked about awareness. Now let's talk about a little bit about advancement. And you've got over a decade of experience and then some in the financial services industry. So question is, how do you encourage transitioning military members to see themselves as future leaders in financial services?
I think that what people really respond to are role models. And role models in uniform are, might be your sergeant, it might be your leading petty officer, it might be your commanding officer. So I think if the financial services industry had a way for the kind of outreach with people who are really doing these kinds of jobs. Here's somebody who's at this level or this level or this level, and really finding that way to get into those units where those people are and show that this is a good thing. I think the second thing is particularly if it's somebody who has come up maybe along one of the paths that we've just described. Hey, I used to be an airman in the 335th Tactical Fighter Squadron. I'm a registered financial counselor now, or I'm a director in at this level in one of the big financial services companies. it shows that, hey, they did it. I can do that too. I can see myself following that path. So role models, flesh and blood human beings that get out there and show that they can do it. I think the other thing is, we talked about a little bit earlier on, is taking advantage of probably one of the greatest benefits of military service, which is education, and doing the right preparation in the kind of courses that you do in those educations to lay the groundwork for down the way. And that goes back to those role models. It's not only, gee, I could see myself as them, hearing from somebody about what they did, how they did it, maybe the thing that they're glad that they did, a couple of things that if they could go back and redo it, they would do. That's what I find really resonates with people. Hearing a story from somebody that has done it, understands the circumstances that that person is in today, and lays out a path that they could follow.
It's very important about role models, mentors, whatever term you want to put to them, right? Individuals that you look up to that have done what you're trying to do. And a lot of times we have to have that moral courage to pick up the phone or send an email to reach out to them. And then sometimes as mentors, also looking and seeing folks that are trying to maybe follow your footsteps or do things that you've done in the past and reaching out to them, right? Mentorship, two-way street, right? Up and down or laterally, so to speak. So the other thing is with our spouses. So I want to go back to our spouses real quick. They have large networks, lots of times. And then we've talked about some of the opportunities. So this question is about spouses. How can spouses leverage networking and development opportunities to accelerate career progression and influence organizational success?
I think that, again, you said it here just a minute ago, that there's a two-way street on this. And one of those things is spouses are in tough positions a lot of times. They're the member of a two-parent family. It might be a single-parent family. And that single parent a lot of times goes on for months at a time while a service member is deployed or off on a long solo assignment. So understanding and accommodating some of the things that allow people to continue to move forward in a career. And I think one of the biggest challenges that military members and families face are the availability of childcare to just do the basics of life, let alone to kind of do the things that are required to maybe get some further education or to participate in a meaningful career. I think the second part of that is you're going to have choppiness in careers, and ultimately that turns into resumes. So if I'm a hiring manager or I'm a person in HR and I get you're trying to sort through 50 resumes to hire 2 people, I think making aware people who do this, they go, don't just put somebody in the other pile and then I'm not going to look at that one pile anymore because they've got some of these thin spots in what should look like a traditional regular track. Go back and ask the question and go back and go, oh, well, yeah, you were raising 3 kids while your spouse was off doing 8 months in the desert someplace. So I can understand why that happened. Now, in doing that, you gain some skills and you gain some experiences that I contend are pretty important to have in life. So how do you help people with the circumstances they have to be in to help them get to the things they need to do? And then when you're looking at their record, don't dismiss out of hand something that you don't completely understand without going back and asking the questions, because you might be leaving a really great opportunity on the table.
No, that's great advice. And just valuing what our spouses, bring to the fight, or whatever career field it is, especially within the financial services industry. So this question is about our families. As obviously being the chair of USAA, and you seeing some of the impact of some of the financial challenges that we're dealing with right now. But in your opinion, what are the most pressing financial challenges military families face today? And how can the financial services industry better educate itself to understand and respond to these unique financial needs?
I think that it's how to build sustaining financial health over the long term. We live in a time where people want quick answers. They want to be able to ask Claude or Grok or ChatGPT, hey, what's the answer to this question? And while there's a lot of information available out there, what I think the biggest challenge that military families have is they don't necessarily have a lot of money or a lot of excess money, but what they do have is they have time. And being able to get started on the right path, and sometimes the right path is just making sure you don't take the wrong path. Don't make mistakes early on that you have to spend a lot of time digging out of. I think the second one is that you get a lot of good benefits that you don't completely understand when you first get them. Some of the things that come with military, like GI Bill benefits in education, some of the opportunities around access to things you can do. There's a whole list. You don't completely get those until later on in life. So don't make the big mistakes early. Realize that getting started, even if it's very early, so you can let time work for you. And don't expect that you're going to solve the whole thing in a couple of ChatGPT sessions. You got a long arc out there ahead of you, and seeing how time can work for you is probably one of the most important attributes that I don't think we completely take advantage of.
Once again, great advice, and making sure, we were talking about what can financial services industry companies, do to support that, right? And them advisors, et cetera, being educated on the different nuances and resources and opportunities for the military community. My daughter, she's right at 8 years, and, she's under the blended retirement system, right? So I had to educate myself, right? And make sure I knew what to tell her about what it is and potentially how to help, but in financial services industry companies, knowing what those nuances is, because like you said, GI Bill, there's different chapters of GI Bill and how those things can benefit and help you positively from a financial standpoint. So, sir, this takes me into our last question. So, which goes right in line with USAA and financial services companies and things that these companies can do to help our community. So one of the most meaningful ways to honor military service is by helping veterans and spouses build fulfilling careers after their time in uniform. With that in mind, on this Veterans Day, USAA has announced a new commitment. Could you share what this initiative represents and how it connects to today's discussion about meaningful careers and long-term support for military families?
Well, Phil, it's we've talked a lot here over the last 30 minutes or so about both the opportunities and the challenges and the really great attributes that military members and their families bring. And this Veterans Day, USAA is launching an initiative that will be called Honor Through Action. It's a lot of things, and I'll give a little peek, and this is a little peek for your audience before the official announcement. But I'll start out by saying USA has committed $500 million over the next 5 years to honor all those and who have served through both advocacy and action. And so, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to give a bunch of money away to organizations that help? It's more than that. It's, people really appreciate a simple thank you, and that can mean a lot. But what USAA has decided is an intentional actions that support and can change lives and really change the future for that family, for not just now, but for generations to come. That's the things that we're trying to do. We're not going to do this alone. A big piece of this is to bring together a really broad-based coalition of public and private partners that we've done a fair amount of research. In fact, we've done a lot of research about the most urgent challenges military families face. And what we've kind of put that into is 3 areas that we're really going to concentrate in. Meaningful careers, which, one of those might be in financial services like we talked about, financial security, and well-being. And that is the kind of the attributes that help people thrive and transform their life. And so the goal of this is to improve employment outcomes post-military. It's to help people secure their financial readiness and then access the kind of quality care, both for physical and mental, that really gets you to well-being in the long term. We think USA is really positioned uniquely to do this, and both with what our mission is and also with bringing on a lot of partners who, whether they're directly supporting the military or not, they understand the importance of this. So this is really about getting to post-military careers, navigation, spouses building strong careers, employer engagement, skills development, and then community support. And just to close it out, the need for this is really big. By even the department's own statistics, 1 in 5 transitioning service members feel really fully ready to leave when it's time for them to hang up their uniform. The unemployment rate for military spouses remains 4 times higher than civilian rate. And that's what we talked about earlier, a huge loss, both for those families and for a country that's looking for qualified people to work. And those things, all taken together, in a lot of cases, they need policies to change. They need laws to change. They need mindsets to change within big parts of the society and the industry. And that's what USAA is taking on to do in conjunction with a big coalition of, and I'm happy to report the people that are signing up for this are a lot. And there's a lot of people that when the idea is presented to them, big companies say, sign me up and tell me how I can help. So you'll hear more about this on Veterans Day, but there's a sneak peek for your group.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the sneak peek. I'm super excited to hear about the announcement, and just thank you for your leadership within USAA as being the chair of the board. And it's not only you talk about it, but your actions reflect that as well. You talk about $500 million that's going to go to the community to be able to help employment and community and everything that you talked about. So super excited about the announcement. So, sir, this concludes our podcast as far as the questions are concerned, but I did want to give you some time for final comments, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, Phil, I so much appreciate everything that the American College does. A lot of people talk about it. The American College acts. They have real programs, they have real work, and it starts and ends with how can we help military members and their families succeed today and build meaningful careers and build meaningful lives underpinned by financial well-being into the future. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for what the college does. And we look forward to continuing partnership to get to all the good things that we've talked about today.
Thank you, sir. And we definitely, each and every morning when Angelica and I wake up as leads for the Center for Military and Veterans Affairs, that's what's on our mind, right? How can we continue to help those that are transitioning from an awareness, from education, and then those that are in the financial services industry, how we can help them with advancement. So sir, as we conclude, once again, congratulations as being our 2025 Soldier-Citizen Award recipient. And sir, once again, happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Phil.
That's all for now, but you can find all our episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and most other streaming services. Be sure to like us, follow us, and leave us a rating and review. Shares is a production of the American College of Financial Services, and we hope you join us next time